I want to welcome you to this video lesson. And I just want you to know that I also have some people here today in the audience, and I appreciate them showing up. Some people thought it would be really good that I had some people that looked a lot like my congregation to be able to talk to. You know, when I was a young boy and we used to play baseball and basketball and football and so forth in the neighborhood, what happened was we would get together and we would choose up teams. And one of the things that we found out was that sometimes it's very difficult to choose. So what we did was we did the old children's song, Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And in doing that, we found out, number one, it was easier to choose, but also two, we realized that we had choice. So today, I want to talk about choices on this Palm Sunday. Listen to what the text said. There were also two criminals led out with Jesus to be put to death. And when they came to the place called the Skull, the soldiers crucified Jesus and the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them because they do not know what they are doing." The soldiers threw lots to decide who would get his clothes. And the people stood there watching, and the leaders made fun of Jesus, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is God's chosen one, the Messiah, the Christ." The soldiers also made fun of him, coming to Jesus and offering him some vinegar. They said, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." And at the top of the cross, these words were written, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals on the cross began to shout insults at Jesus. "Aren't you the Christ? Then save yourself and us." But the other criminal stopped him and said, "You should fear God. You are getting the same punishment he is. We are punished justly, getting what we deserve for what we did. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said to Jesus, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "I tell you the truth, today you'll be with me in paradise." Your choices make a difference. Edwin was a master actor during the 1800s. He was a big man and he had a big voice. And there were none that were better. He played Richard II at the age of 15 and was quickly seen as a great Shakespearean actor. He played in New York and then in London, and he was a hit in both places. His career was on the way up, but something happened. It wasn't something that he chose. It wasn't something that he was responsible for. It was just something he could not control. See, Edward had two brothers, and they were both actors also. In fact, here's a picture of them in a play called Julius Caesar. They wasn't as successful as Edwin, but it was interesting that Edwin's brother John played Brutus in this play, the one that killed Caesar. See, because on April the 15th, 1865, Edwin's brother John slipped into the Ford Theater and assassinated President Lincoln. Edwin's last name was Booth. And as you know, the man, John, was John Wilkes Booth. And after the assassination, Edward could not find any acting. His shame over what his brother had done had convinced him he needed to retire. He might have never acted again if it hadn't been for an event in a train station in New Jersey. He was waiting for a train, and a young man fell between the platform and a moving train, and without thinking, Edwin wrapped his leg around a post and reached down and saved the young boy. Edwin did not recognize the boy, but the boy recognized him. And later he received a letter from General Adams Bideau, who was the chief secretary of General Ulysses S. Grant. The letter was to thank Edwin for saving the life of the son of Abraham Lincoln, Robert Todd Lincoln. Edwin's choice to act offered life. It's kind of strange that Edwin and John Wilkes Booth were raised in the same home by the same parents. They had the same profession and the same passion for acting, but one chose life and the other one chose death. Their story is not unique. This happens over and over again throughout history. Even in the Bible, Cain and Abel, both sons of Adam and Eve. Abel chose God. Cain chose murder, and God let them. Noah and everybody else on the planet had a choice. Noah chose God, and the world chose themselves, and God let them. David and Saul were both kings in Israel, and David sought life, sought God. But Saul sought power, and God let him. Peter and Judas both betrayed Jesus. Peter chose forgiveness, and Judas chose suicide, and God let him. And no one has ever said it more clearer than Jesus. We have a choice. Matthew 25, all the nations of the world will be gathered before him, and he will separate them into two groups as shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. The Son of Man will put the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. Make your choice with the sheep or the goats. Neither one smell very good, but the choice is ours. And Jesus outlines the consequences when we make the wrong kinds of choices. A man was in a hurry to take his 8-year-old son to school and basically ran a stop sign. He goes, "Oh no, son, I ran a stop sign." And the son said, "That's okay, Dad. The policeman behind us did the same thing." See, I've always wondered why there were two crosses. Why wasn't there 10? Why wasn't there 15? Why wasn't there 20? And maybe God was just trying to give us another sign. See, to continue our thoughts today is these two criminals have so much in common. They were convicted by the same legal system. They were both condemned to die the same death. They were at the mercy of the same crowd. They were both very close to Jesus. And both insulted him. Look at what Matthew tells us. Matthew tells us that in the same way, the robbers who were being crucified beside Jesus also insulted him. But one changed his mind. One made a different choice. Look at what Luke tells us. One of the criminals on the cross began to shout insults at Jesus. "Aren't you the Christ? Then save yourself and us." See, that's the one. But the other criminal stopped him and said, "You should fear God. You're getting the same judgment that he is. We are punished justly, getting what we deserve for what we did. But this man has done nothing wrong." Jesus, he asked, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he told him, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." See, many times we forget about the thief that rejected Jesus. Why didn't Jesus look over at him and say, "Hey, buddy, today you're going to be in hell. You're going to be punished eternally for the choices that you make. You may want to reconsider how you feel about me." Jesus warns everyone about the lost. One of my favorite chapters in the Bible, Luke 15, tells about a shepherd who leaves the 99 and goes and finds the one. The woman who sweeps the entire house just to find one of the lost coins. And then there's a story of the prodigal son. And you know what the father did when he left? He waited. So what's the difference? And I think the difference is that the sheep innocently walked off. The coin was lost accidentally or irresponsibly. But the son made a conscious choice. The father of the prodigal gave him the choice, just like Jesus gives us, of whether we want to accept him or whether we want to accept him. See, you always have a choice. You know, there are a lot of things that I don't get to choose. I don't get to choose how tall I was. I don't get to choose the color of my hair, color of my eyes, whether I was a boy or whether I was a girl, whether I was born into a family that was rich or one that was poor. I didn't even get to choose my parents. And if this virus continues, we're actually going to find out what really the real color of everybody's hair is. So you can't choose your height, but you can choose where you spend eternity. You can't choose your parents, but you can choose God or hell. See, aren't you glad it's that way? I don't think I would want it any other way. I don't want God to play eeny, meeny, miny, moe and decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell just by a lottery choice. It is significant that the things that we cannot choose are temporary. But the things that we can choose are eternal. So what about the thief on the cross who chose Jesus? Oh, he made some bad mistakes. He made some bad choices. He chose the wrong crowd. He chose the wrong morals. He chose the wrong behavior. But he made one good choice, and it changed eternity. See, I don't know if you're like me, but I'd like to reverse some of the things that I've done. I'd like to have a mulligan or a do-over for the choices that I've made. There's one choice that we can make that will give us a clean slate. It can erase a lifetime of mistakes. See, how can two boys have the same mother, the same home, and one choose life and one choose death? How can one thief turn away from Jesus and the other one accept him? I don't know, but it happens every day. But why did Jesus not save them both? Don't miss this. Jesus loved both thieves enough to make the choice for them. But he allowed them to make their own choice and allows me and you to do the same. Listen to what Deuteronomy says. Today I ask heaven and earth to be witnesses. I am offering you life or death, blessings or curses. Now choose life. Then you and your children may live. To choose life is to love the Lord thy God, obey him, and stay close to him. He is your life, and he will let you live many years in the land, and the land he promised to give your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Just remember, today it's not too late. Edwin Booth made the right choice, and he saved a little boy. A thief on the cross changed his mind about Jesus and went to paradise. A king named David, though with many flaws and many bad choices, was a man after God's own heart. A man in a desert named Noah built an ocean liner because he chose God. An apostle who constantly was making mistakes chose forgiveness instead of death. You have the same ability, but time may be limited. What kind of choices are you making? An old couple was riding in the old pickup going down an old country road. And the wife says to him, honey, we used to be real close, sitting and kind of snuggling up to each other when we would go down the road together when we were young. I wonder what happens And the old farmer looks at his wife, of whom he loves, and simply says, I haven't moved. Which way will you choose? I ask you this morning to remember your sin, remember your bad choices, but also remember the cross.